carried. We have one delegation this evening. That's the gentleman from the Legion, Jerry and John. So you guys can come to the podium there. Can you move that podium for me? This way. You can come to the podium here and make a presentation, and then you'll be on candid camera. There you go.
Where's that alarm?
Good evening, and I'd like to thank everyone for having me here tonight. Our Legion has been in the process of trying to level out our funds so that we can continue to operate and give assistance to the town and our veterans alike. Our liquor license situation right now is we have a liquor primary license club, which means that every time we have an event of any kind, people have to be signed in. They've changed the legislation as of the first of this year so that the clubs can transition to a liquor primary license. And that's what I'm here tonight to get approval for from the town. I'd like to read this off to you so I don't miss anything.
Sure.
All right. On January the 23rd, 2017, the provincial government of British Columbia made a number of changes to the Liquor Act. In response to these changes, we have reviewed our current liquor license. The overall objective is to change the license to improve our overall operations, while at the same time ensuring we can maintain membership-driven organizations that meet the missions and objectives of the Royal Canadian Legion. As one of the two licensees in the town of Comox, Branch 160 is restricted by our current liquor license in utilizing our facility to its fullest. With 211 licensed seats on the main floor and 160 seats on the upper floor, all restricted to members and guests, the potential to even fill half the seats is slim. There are a number of options available upon review. The Liquor License Review Committee is recommending a change to liquor primary for the entire building. Based on the facts that we have today, it is most cost efficient and best fit for our branch situation. We must become more competitive in the local market to generate funds for our veterans and their families. The bar sales are our single highest source of revenue, with a recent decline, particularly because of the trend in reduced alcohol consumption per person. We must change our approach for generating funds. We need more people in seats. The only way to do this is to open the door to a larger group of people, the public. The pros for this is that we will no longer need to post and maintain a sign-up register at the door. However, we can have a register for members' privileges. We may have members-only pricing and events. We'll be able to open our doors to the public as we choose, potential to increase our revenue to support veterans and our community. Allow our entertainment committee a much wider range of options to generate funds to maintain and expand our branch. And the cons to that is we lose our off-sale permit. We've been told this at the outset kind of thing, but currently our off-sales are very little in the way of revenue anyway. It was more a convenience. We'll require more stringent security at events, and we may need to increase our bar staff, cleaning staff in that regard. What they're offering us is the change at a cost of only $330 as long as we don't change our footprint of our building, which is really reasonable. Okay, a few facts, questions that come up. Can a liquor primary be operated as a members only? And it's absolutely. A liquor primary can run as members only, all or part of the time. For example, the lounge could be a member only Sunday through Thursday and open to the public on Fridays and Saturdays. Second, is catering endorsement required to serve food and alcohol in a liquor primary banquet room? No. As long as food and alcohol services is done on site, service may be provided to anyone. How long will the application process take? Approximately 3 to 6 months. The initial application will be the first sent, and this is why I'm here, to the Comox Council for approval. This may include public consultation on the impact to the community. Will minors be able to attend Legion functions? Minors will be permitted to the branch up to 10 p.m. as long as food service is available. Minors are restricted from purchasing lottery products or drinks. Thank you. And I'd accept any questions that anyone has or concerns.
Questions from members of council? Go ahead.
The only question I have is, what involvement have we got? Like, I'm wondering where are you looking for a blessing from us, or you're looking for, it says approval,
Yeah.
but it's a
There's a
provincial
section,
thing, so I'm just wondering what it is.
Maybe,
maybe
there is a
it's-
section in the application form from the Liquor Control Board
Yeah.
of BC,
Yeah,
and it is specific, it says local council approval.
okay.
So,
And that's what I'm seeking, is that.
yeah, in the past, when we've received these applications, usually there's an option for the council to go to a public notification. Maybe the planner can speak to that.
Correct. If we do have a liquor licensing application form and application fee for when it's coming forward under the Liquor Licensing Control Board for council resolution. So that will be the process to get this before council, and then a report will be generated along with the recommendation in terms of public consultation.
So these gentlemen will have to submit this application through the liquor board and then to us?
Through to us.
Oh, to us, okay.
We have it with us, you know.
So, we obviously can't approve this tonight, nor would we normally anyway, as a delegation, but certainly you could submit the application to staff. That would generate a report, and then it would come back to council, possibly to go to public notification, and then come back to council with any input. So that may be the process, I think, as it
Yeah,
unfolds.
that's what I'm trying to.
So there may be other questions about that council have, but that's normally the process.
You want this left with you?
Not with me, no, you'll have to direct it to the staff.
Yeah, okay.
Unless there's other questions, we'll leave it at that.
My questions were all answered.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen. So, yeah, you can submit that through town hall. All right, so we'll move on to minutes of meetings. We have the November 15th regular council meeting minutes for approval.
Move.
Second?
On approval, all those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. And the committee of the whole meeting minutes for receipt.
Second.
And all those in favor? Motion is carried. Move on to the manager's report for receipt.
Move receipt.
Second.
On receipt then, all those in favor? Motion is carried. There is, to my understanding, a groundbreaking ceremony this Friday morning at the 19 Wing Comox. So regarding fixed wing switch and rescue, so that's underway, and I understand they're going out to tender on a number of aspects of that project. It's moving ahead. Any other questions on the manager's report?
I'm wondering, can we delete that one off of the management report?
The only thing I think we need to make sure of is that we've processed anything that would be required from us in terms of the grant aid until the building's actually built. And I'll maybe defer to the finance director on that. Is there anything more that we have to do?
I do not know.
Okay, well maybe staff can look at that, and then next time we meet, we can have a discussion on that. See if there's anything else. I know we did sort of approve it in principle, whether you have to actually do a formal bylaw or something, I don't know. Okay, anything else? Seeing none, we'll move on to, just actually before that, on number 5, the pocket park thing, we did get that received, and there was a motion on Raza Greenway. Does council still want that item on there? Okay, so we can take that one off. And we still have to deal with the wayfinding one, but...
So 5 is now off.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, staff will note that. Okay, so also we have then back to us the unfinished business, the court application to modify the terms of the MacLean Trust.
Move.
All right, so there's a series of recommendations. We should probably do them one at a time. So the first
one.
Move one is that council authorized payment of the trust of $178,000 as set out on the agenda, 103 from general revenues together with the other 75 previously allocated. So that's been moved and seconded.
Second.
Any discussion on that? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion's carried. Number 2.
I'll move 2.
Second.
That is for the town to continue to seek a court-ordered variation of the trust applicable to the trust funds to allow for those funds to be used to fund the demolition of shake sites and construction of the proposed viewing platform in its place. So moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried.
And I'll move 3.
And 3 is that the court be, we propose to the court that the variation be conditional on the council adopting the bylaw establishing a reserve fund for the purpose of funding the maintenance and repair of the viewing platform and directing that the amount remaining after construction be placed in that reserve fund. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. All right, thank you, council. That'll hopefully go to the court process early in the new year. And we'll await the results of the decision and move forward. The next item, we're under, I guess, new business, and that is, or special report, sorry, that is the 2017 year in review. I'm not proposing to read that out, so hopefully everyone's had a chance to look at that. Another busy year with some key focus areas and, of course, ongoing things as we go forward, particularly as we've just recently reviewed our strat plan, which we'll have a final look at next week. So
That's a good report.
staff helped put it
Do we
together.
want to receive that?
Yes, please.
I'll move receipt.
Second.
All those in favor? Motion's carried. Also for receipt, we have the minutes of the Regional District for Solid Waste Management, Hospital Board, and Regional Board.
Move all of them.
On receipt then, all those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Anything out of those? All been well reported on, I'm sure. No bylaws, so under new business, we'll move to the development variance permit application for 2435 Dakota Place.
I'll move the recommendation.
And that is that the permit be issued, and this is to facilitate a phased strata subdivision. Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hopefully self-explanatory. Okay. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you, staff. And we'll move on to replacement of the fireboat motor.
I'll move that.
Second.
This authorizing staff to purchase two 2017 90 horsepower outboard motors from CVM Marine to replace the existing inboard motor of the fire rescue fireboat at a cost of $21,495.04. Those funds be taken from the provincial wildfire deployment. So let's move to the second question.
Yeah, a couple of questions I did have with that is, do we need two motors on that? Two 90 horsepower motors are big, and I know we have the fire chief there.
All right.
So that's one question, and then I'll have another one for you.
Okay. Sorry, is there something going on here we don't know about?
The alarm went off before you got here. The fire alarm went off.
Oh, okay.
Actually, they come to take you away. They finally got you.
It's called jail and bail.
Yeah, that's right. No, this is real. Hand was in the cookie jar.
This is my lawyer card. I need it.
So you
Oh,
give me
no.
one.
It's way past that.
All right, you had a second question, sorry?
Well, I haven't answered
Yeah,
the first one.
Moving along.
Through the chair, the question on the motors of the boat, the boat currently has an inboard motor which is over 30 years old. We're not sure the horsepower it's putting out, it's a fairly large motor, but we think it's putting out about 130, 40, 50 horse in that neighborhood. We'd like to change it out to 290s, make the boat a lot more agile. The current boat has a jet drive leg on it, which is very cumbersome in the marina here, hard to maneuver quickly. So we've had many meetings in the fire department here with our senior management team, and we think we're on the right track to go to the twin power system on it.
Okay.
And the cost that you outlined, that's installed price, correct?
Pretty much installed. We might have to do a little bit of retrofitting on the hull itself, which we'll cover with some funds that the firefighters have. But that's the cost of the town.
Yeah. Yeah, it'd be nice, it's a nice unit that perhaps down the road we can think about having it in the water in its own little enclosure to keep it safe and available, when needed, instead of having to lug it for the fire helmet.
Yeah.
That's
Why is it on the trailer just for
Well,
convenience or?
maintenance and security reasons, it's got a lot of valuable equipment on it, so if we were to store it in the marina, we potentially would like a structure over top of it.
Right.
That's contrary to our existing rules and guidelines.
Okay, all right. Something to think about.
mm-hmm.
Well, it looks like you got good service out of the current inboard, 30 years. That's pretty remarkable, actually. All right, so any further? Yeah, go ahead.
Just a comment, please. I think it bears repeating that the funds to purchase these two motors is going to come from the provincial wildfire deployment.
Right.
So, to you, yes,
Yeah.
and the fire department.
Yeah, so that would come from the funds from the provincial wildfires that we did this summer.
Yes.
And the initial boat was purchased by the volunteer firefighters and donated to the town.
Right. Excellent. Thank you.
All right, any other questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion's carried.
No one was arrested, I take it.
Let Marvin know.
All right, so we're going to move on now to the new item regarding the rezoning application for 618 and 634 Anderson Road, and I understand staff have a presentation. So let them get set up here.
Good evening. The outline, we've broken down the presentation into 6 components. Start with an application summary, then going on to the location and land use context for the proposed development, the relevant OCP objectives and policies, relevant development permit area guidelines, we review of those, along with the sustainability implications, followed by zoning. The proposed development, so the proposed development is to rezone the subject properties to a new CD zone to facilitate a 4-story building comprised of ground floor commercial with residential above. So we're looking at approximately 625 square meters of ground floor commercial, 81 residential units, and 111 parking spaces at grade. Okay, different two screens. So let me just, I guess most majority of council's looking in that direction, so cool. So what we have is location of subject properties. So we have the subject properties right here. So we have the 2 properties located on Anderton Road. So essentially the red, the hash marked red, is commercial. So it's immediately to the south of a commercial node at Anderton and Guthrie. Similarly, we have a smaller little commercial node at Anderton and Comox Avenue. And as we go from the south to the north, we have townhouse designation and then transitioning into mixed use, commercial residential, before we get, which is the subject properties designation, before we get into the commercial. The mixed-use commercial residential designation is designed to accommodate 2 or more uses on the same site. One of its objectives is to diversify the local economic base to create new employment opportunities. It's within development permit area number 4, mixed-use commercial, and it's currently zoned C4.1 core commercial, which is our dominant zone within the downtown area. In regards to the OCP road network, it's on Anderton, and trust me, it's a little red road that's going north south on that drawing. It's designated, its road classification in the OCP is arterial, and arterial is our highest road classification. You'll often see that it's got a classification of greater than 5,000 vehicle trips per day. That classification doesn't mean it's designed to 5,000, it's designed to 5,000 and everything above. There is nothing higher than it. It's currently at 10,000 vehicle trips per day, and that volume will increase in the future regardless of this development proposal. As we get more infill development and there's more greenfield development on our fringes. The OCP is, one of its guiding principles is transit-orientated design, so that's the idea that we're increasing our population density within 400 meters of existing transit routes. In this case, it's not only on the existing transit route that runs along Anderton Road, but that route is part of the frequent transit network. So as time goes on, you'll see increasing frequency of bus service, almost like an express service. And it's really designed to service Comox and link it to the North Island College, to the new Comox Valley Hospital, downtown Courtenay, and the Anfield Center. Development permit guidelines, there's a number of development permit guidelines, several of which focus on the need to use architectural design features to reduce the appearance of building mass and height, provide a pedestrian orientation, and to avoid long dominating facades. And the proposal includes several key development features related to these. However, given the nature of the development, resolution of the outstanding items are critical to evaluating conformance to these guidelines, and that's why you have a section in Schedule 1 on items to be resolved prior to second reading. I'll explore that now in more detail. So in terms of the development features built into the proposal, you have a varied treatment between the commercial and the residential above. So not only is this pops out, the building face here, the commercial building face relative to the residential, about 1.85 meters forward. You have a different treatment along the commercial, and you have the canopy. You have also the staggered top roof elements that helps to break up the roof treatment itself. When we get into the corners of the building, so we actually have sort of three corners. On the south corner and on the east corner, we have a tapering of the building. On elevation, it doesn't look like much. It's this right here. But to understand that, you have to go to the floor plan. The floor plan shows how this is the building facade on the fourth story, and then it goes in quite substantially, and I believe that's about 4 meters that it's going in. Did it go right? Yeah. Third story roof right here, and then you have this treatment. So the idea is from a pedestrian orientation, meet pedestrian guidelines. The focus, given the steep sight line of the pedestrian is really going to be focusing on this element. This will recede quite far in the background if it's visible at all. So it'll go here and here, so that'll give you a visual effect of tapering. Also, what doesn't show on the elevation drawings is this. There's a significant corner setback of the building from the northwest corner. So you have this really large setback in the corner here. Now, there's no getting around the fact that at its very core, this is one large building. It's a large building that has a very long street frontage. It's also got retaining walls and steps between the sidewalk and the ground floor, as opposed to different treatments that sometimes is done depending on the development and cost allowances, namely breaking a building into multiple buildings so that each one is able to follow the grade down, or having a step or a break in the building to follow the sidewalk grade closer. And that's really getting into the need for resolution of the outstanding items. So I'll go through a number of these outstanding items, the first 4 verbally, and then I'll go back to the drawings to show what they mean. First one is to have staggering of the commercial canopy facade. Actually, I think my memory's good, so let me see. Okay, so what we're talking about is staggering of this facade. Similar to what you have in terms of the vertical staggering in this area, and that's going to help break it up. There's nothing wrong with the canopy or anything like that. It's just a function of the length of it on the street. So really you're looking at something quite minor, probably around 0.6 of a meter or something like that, and sort of insetting this canopy here and here at these corners. And that will help also articulate the vertical breakup at this point. Similarly, we have a commercial elevation frontage. It's very nice, but it's long. And you start getting this repetitiveness, so the idea of having additional architectural details to break that up. Likewise, you do have the retaining wall. You add texture to that retaining wall, the vertical surface that's visible from the pedestrians. It adds that extra detail, that extra focus of the eye to break it up. And we don't have a balcony detail at the time. Balconies can, railings. Balcony. They can either, they can be less or more visually creating a barrier in terms of blocking off the sidewalk from the street. So, okay. Spot elevations permit confirmation of building height, retaining wall height, and proposed changes to existing parking lot grading. It is a sloping site. It doesn't look like it, but it's a very long site. It slopes, and you have a significant grade differential, and that's key in terms of the impact on the street, and it's also key in terms of the impact on the neighbors. if the buildings pop up or if the site grading pops up around. And given that complexity, that's one of the reasons that we've also highlighted the need for a complete set of revised drawings in accordance with the town's standard drawing requirements. And that's to allow us to easily verify conformance to the proposed zoning regulations and development permit guidelines. We also have confirmation of transformer location and size, and this is not a full BC Hydro servicing drawing, which is incredibly expensive. This is a preliminary drawing, there's a specific word for it that we've researched with the local building community and also with BC Hydro. It'll give us a 90% accuracy of whether or not we need a transformer and its location. It's critical on a development like this because you have that long building frontage, you have very little space between the commercial and the street. It's taken up either with sidewalks, steps, retaining walls. So the idea, if an additional transformer is needed, if it has to go in there now, there's going to have to be some significant site alterations to allow for it to have a minimal impact and or to allow for it to have some screening. And we've gotten caught in the past in similar situations where we work hard to get a detailed street front, and then all of a sudden Hydro comes in and says, congratulations, we need a transformer, we need it in this spot. So that's the reason for that requirement. The last, extensive landscaping of the northwest corner of the site, including decorative trees, shrubs, and landscaping. When we did the OCP and we were looking at densifying the Anderton corridor, key to neighborhood acceptance was that the existing character of the street had extensive, significant trees, acknowledging that those are on private property that are going to get demoed when it's developed. And how do we retain some of that character? So this requirement was then put in at the assistance of the neighborhood. The idea that, yes, they will be removed, but provide extensive landscaping along the street where we can to somehow retain some part of the character, or at least allow some compatibility as development occurs. Sustainability implications, the applicant proposes $24,500 and change to the affordable housing contribution, and that's in accordance with the OCP policy. We also have an OCP policy that to seek external third-party green building certification, and that has not been provided as part of the application, and that's included in Schedule 1 outstanding items to be resolved prior to second reading. We've amended our policies on that to include not only the 3 different certifications that we currently allow, Built Green Bronze, EnerGuide, 5% increase in EnerGuide efficiency or Energy Star, but also Step 1 of the new BC Building Code requirements, and that's equivalent to Built Green Bronze. It does include a blower test, so essentially they're testing the energy efficiency or the airtightness of the building. Zoning, currently C4.1, core commercial, requires the ground floor to be commercial, or the entire ground floor, unless you have parking as part of your ground floor. If you cantilever second story. Anything above the ground floor has to be commercial or residential. 10-meter maximum height, that typically equates to 3 stories, 3-story building. The proposed CD25 zone has ground floor, the idea of requiring commercial along the building frontage to a minimum depth of 10 meters. For a length of 60 meters. The remainder of the ground floor can be residential dwelling units. Above that, residential, maximum height of 13 meters as opposed to 10, and 4 stories as opposed to 3. The commercial component also is key to the OCP objective of encouraging sustainable, complete communities. The idea that this is in regards to the surrounding neighborhood, not just this site. To be able to provide residential dwelling units within walking distance of commercial services so that daily needs and possibly even employment can be done by walking as opposed to alternative means. If there's any questions.
Okay, any questions from members of council? Go ahead.
Thanks, Marvin. So you're talking about the green building, and looking at this is a big building. You know, that is my one concern, that how it's going to look on the street. And by helping the neighbors out on Cougar, we've moved it closer to Anderton.
Yes.
So, you know, that's a balancing act there. But with the parking lot, that's a lot of concrete. So are we looking at anything to have like a parking lots that would be made of, like the core system, for example? We just built the apartment block at the base, and some parking spots have that core system, pea gravel in them. It allows rainwater to go into the ground and helps with runoff. Is there things like that that are being looked at here? Or is it just going to be all asphalt and with
My
catch
knowledge,
basin?
no. I mean, the commercial, mixed-use commercial residential typically goes in our established neighborhoods, similar to a commercial or straight commercial. And those tend historically and to be designed to be above 100% impervious or close to it. So if you think of like a downtown, and so the setbacks and the sizes of the existing services all reflect that. So we have no requirement in our design guidelines. One of the problems that has occurred with exfiltration galleries, or you're taking essentially a lot of runoff from a hard surface and then putting it in a localized area, is whether or not it helps is dependent on how much the subsurface area has been changed. In this case, the surrounding properties have been fully drained, connected to our storm main going out. And then whether or not, so that affects whether it'll have a positive influence, and whether or not it has a negative influence depends on, again, the actual localized soil conditions. You pump water in, it can also go straight into somebody's basement if there's a clay seam that's shallow or something like that. So in this case, it's not been targeted for that, and to my knowledge, Regina, is there any? No, we're looking at asphalt with landscaping, just straight landscaping in the setbacks.
Right, okay, and just the other question I had regarding the parking lot is the lights. It's going to be pretty bright back there with the neighbors surrounding it, so we're looking at like lights, LEDs or something that are going to be just shining down. They're not going to be doing a lot of light pollution or anything?
That's part of the revised items right now. I don't know if they looked at our standards or not, but I believe it's 24-foot posts. And some of them are right on the property line. So part of the outstanding conditions prior to the second reading would include compliance with our guidelines, and specifically, and so that means 4.5 meter maximum light height, full cutoff, and that they move the standards off the side property lines, which they should easily be able to accomplish.
Right.
I don't see that as being a major issue.
Yeah, and anything you can do with your suggestions of breaking up the canopies, the bulkiness of it, I think is good, because it is a big building on that street.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll go with Councillor McKinnon, then Price.
Yes, I had a couple of questions. One may have been addressed here, but coming from the neighbors, concerns from the neighbors, and they involve the shading issue and the runoff issues. In Planning's department, in your estimation, have they been addressed? And if so, adequately, how have they been addressed?
Well, I think in runoff issues, we're looking at hard surface with catch basins. So essentially your roof area is going to be going straight into our storm. The entire rear area is going to, except for, I don't know what the setback, I think we're like at 1.5, or we're saying in some areas a 2 meter setback, 4 meter setback. That's necessary to retain the existing trees, so it varies a bit. There'll be less water than there currently is, because there's going to be a lot of it that is currently going on surface or interflow that now will go straight into a pipe system. The
Shading with the yards and homes and gardens, etc.?
I mean, when they went to the public, they saw the general layout of the building. They've included in your package is a light study. They've changed the roof design from a hip roof to the flat roof. That helps a bit. There is not a major impact on light penetration during the day on the properties to the west side of the street. It's really at winter months, and it's at a very limited time during the day. And we're only going from 10, you're also going to have an impact of 10 meters. And you can do an alternative, if you did a 10-meter building and you didn't have it facing essentially only the commercial to the north and the street, you're going to have a much bigger impact on both the single-family residential to the east and the multifamily to the south. So, is there going to be an impact? Yes. Is it minimized given the nature of this development, and especially relative to the other things that could go in under the existing zoning? Yes. It's not going to have no impact.
There's no impact on Cougar, according to the shadow study.
Correct.
There may be across the street on Anderton.
And that was really, sorry, let me back up to, we had primary concern from actually the property owners across the street to the west. So you have a 20-meter setback. Look, the road is 20 meters. Then what we also have, we were very concerned, and we spent a lot of time with the applicant, and the applicant did a lot of redesign in terms of grading. The townhouses to the south are partially, you've got a sloping site, and they're actually partially set down, so I forget, I think the site grade drops like that. And in terms of ensuring that at the abutting townhouse and at the abutting single family to the east, there are no retaining walls. So we're maintaining existing grade, as opposed to when you have a building like this, part of it's going to go, well, either all of it goes above, or you're going to, in this case, you're going to try and minimize this, and you're going to sink it in the ground in one area, and another area will pop up. And the question is it the building that pops up, or is it right to the property line that pops up? And in this case, a lot of redesign was done to ensure it did not occur at the property line. It occurs at the south end of the building.
Does that answer your question, Councilor?
Yes, the second part of my question is an affordable housing question, if I may. And I appreciate the 24,000 plus donation that goes to the Affordable Housing Fund. But what could council consider as a condition, some units within the building due to our 0.5% vacancy rate in the valley for affordable housing in lieu of, or would there be some sort of formula that could be worked out in that regard? And I'll just throw that out on the table.
Well, if you're asking the planner, that's the question.
Under council's affordable housing policy, they can take a housing contribution, and it can be in the form of units, land, or cash. And again, it's a policy, it's not a regulation per se, so you have flexibility in that regard. To date, the focus of, or the direction staff felt that we've had is, unless we're dealing with greenfield, a relatively greenfield site, we're looking at taking cash in lieu. So if there is some other direction council wishes to give in terms of the amount or the nature of the form, they're free to do so, and staff would be negotiating that with the applicant.
Thank you for that, and I believe, Your Worship, we did consider that in a previous development a few years ago.
That involved BC Housing, though. Right? So if you're asking for market rental, this is what this is proposing. Their letter on page 74 indicates that their contribution, other than the cash contribution, is through the provision of new rental units, which play a role in the provision of affordable housing and represent an important component of the housing continuum. The other one we talked about, I think, was at the top of Comox Hill, and that was a potential partnership for seniors housing with BC Housing, which essentially subsidizes that.
Thank you.
Right. Go ahead. Oh, sorry, Councillor Price.
Great, and thank you, and a lot of good answers. It is a long facade, and I just wonder how much can that be softened by planting? You mentioned on the northwest corner extensive planting, but along the west fronting Anderton Road, is that going to be, is there going to be ornamental and other trees along there to
Along the west, so along the commercial component, all that would be boulevard trees. So sidewalk and boulevard trees. And that's really, because we also have the policy of a pedestrian orientation and encourage the buildings to, and especially commercial buildings, to come forward to the street so that pedestrians feel that they can use them. That's encouraging pedestrian orientation. So the applicants have been instructed that to bring the building forward, the commercial component forward. So that really doesn't provide any room on that edge. But because of that unique, extensive setback that we have in the northwest corner, I mean, it's a relatively large area. It's not a 5-foot strip in front of a building facade or something like that. Something substantial can be there that does have an impact.
So there won't be any room at all along the frontage along Anderton to have any ornamental trees?
There will be boulevard trees, so there will be trees municipally. They will be required to, as part of the road construction, to plant boulevard trees, and I think that we're on 8-foot spacings in the specs.
8 meters.
Huh?
8 meters.
8 meters, so 11 trees on 8-meter spacings.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
that's
similar to Rob Road, where are they considered boulevard trees?
Yes, they would be boulevard trees as well. Yes.
And it's a grass verge.
Yes, we'd be following our instructions from Public Works are to follow the existing sidewalk alignment, and then have a barrier curve so there's an existing boulevard.
Wonderful. And then in the car park area, can that be broken up with some planting? Because it's a large area and it also tends to get quite hot when you have a huge piece of asphalt. So by breaking it by, I know you lose a few spaces, but it certainly can provide a much more attractive and environmentally friendly environment to break it with trees.
Yes, and I think that they're, right now what the applicants responded on is not only our parking requirement, but also the public comments to date that really sort of identify vehicles and parking and adequacy of parking as key issues. So they've responded in that manner, and when we did find out that we had to provide additional setback to preserve the fir trees, staff felt very comfortable in terms of past council direction saying, okay, fine, if you're going to go below our standard of 1.25 for the residential to 1.2, do it. We feel very confident that that's in accordance with council direction. If council then wishes to, instruct staff to seek additional landscaping, and that if there is some minor loss of parking that is possibly acceptable, we're happy. Again, that would be a direction from council, and we would deal with that then with the applicant.
Mm-hmm.
It just hasn't been on the table at this point, but if that felt to be important, then I know that we did have some of the same concerns when we looked at things like proposing a fence around the entire perimeter, the garbage compound. So you'll see actually a 2-meter setback of the back of the garbage compound from the fence, and then plus for at least that strip also hedging, so to provide a hedging barrier. And we've done something similar at Stewart and Comox Avenue, just to provide an additional barrier in terms of site. I mean, it's going to house a lot of people, and that means that facilities like garbage compounds and recycling that goes in there as well will be used, so to provide that extra buffer for the residents. Yeah, no, if council feels that they would like to see some landscaping, then we would be dealing with the applicant on that.
I personally would anyway. And just one last question, the materials that are going to be used, particularly on the facade of the building, is it going to be wood?
Regina?
No, Dunedin brick is now proposed.
I think Hardy, isn't it? I thought I
Hardy
read
boards
Hardy.
for the upper stories.
Already timber and brick.
Okay, okay.
Councilor Graham?
Yeah, I just wanted to comment that although this is a rather large building, I think that that's a site where I've heard other people in town say that would be a good spot if you were going to do something like this. I realize this is market housing, but there's a really big need in the valley for this type of housing. or any type of housing for that matter. And I think that this could, for everybody that's got a problem in the neighborhood, there'll be another group that will tell you how much we need this. So when you get to affordable housing, generally if you're going to do affordable housing contributions, it comes with density bonusing. And it's a bit late in the game after you've had them bring a design, then bring another design to then say, by the way, we want to take some suites. I think if you were going to do that, that should have been done at the beginning, so that if you were going to take one, that you'd allow them to build 2 more or 3 more. So, I mean, if that's a way we want to go, I think we do it before this stage. This is a for-profit building that they're building, and so I think if you looked at affordable housing contributions at this point, you'd find that rents would only go up to compensate for that loss, because I don't think you can go back and now add 5 suites to the building to make that work. So I think that it's a very interesting plan. It is a big building, but I think there's quite a need in the valley for it. So those are my thoughts.
Okay, so for the presentation, we'll ask any more questions from Councillor Martin?
If I may, please, yes. First, just a comment. I like the way that staff and the developer have been working together to address the neighbors' needs. I see changes having been made from the first time I attended that open house, and so that, I think, is very good news. I'd just comment on that. And the next one, just for clarification, there's been some discussion regarding pervious and impervious surfaces. Did I recall reading that 31% is going to be designated pervious? Yes? I'm trying to test my memory, having read that 200 pages. I'm trying to remember. It was something like that. Pardon?
Like 31% landscaped area.
Yeah.
Landscaped.
That's what I needed to know. Okay.
And, I mean, those, part of what's been going on is there has been ongoing revisions.
Yes.
And so that is part of what will be updated, and the consistency between the different drawings and everything else. And so we'd be able to get that for you, but it'll be around
Yeah,
that.
about that. Good. Okay.
All right, so I take it you brought this to us for first reading. You normally bring it to us for first and second. The idea of first reading is to get a sense of what council thinks about it, and then back to the developer to meet the conditions for second reading, and then you come back to us?
Correct. So we would only come back once all the conditions in Schedule 1 outstanding items were completed, that have been identified prior to second reading, unless other direction from council.
Okay, so this is the time if council wishes to add or subtract from any of those conditions based on the discussions here today. Yes?
Yeah, I would like to support Councillor Price's idea of some kind of trees in the parking lot. A couple, just to break it up a little bit. Maybe that's something that we can look at.
Okay, well, we would need, I believe, a motion to what effect would we need for that?
Just a motion to add that to the list.
And what would we be adding specifically?
To incorporate trees within the parking area to break up the expanse of asphalt.
Okay, so that's been moved and seconded. Discussion on that? Yep.
I'm just wondering, with the Douglas firs that are being retained, if that would serve the purpose of giving a feel of it broken up. I don't know how much more landscaping we want to try and include in the parking lot. I understand the concern of having a big mass of concrete or asphalt, but I'm a little concerned if we're requiring more that we're really going to be overdoing it.
And I guess we need to clarify whether that motion would be in keeping with the number of parking spots. So in other words, landscaping within, providing the same number of parking spots.
Correct, if council is comfortable reducing the amount of parking.
Right, so that's a question that would have to be considered. If we were, by virtue of requiring additional landscaping, we lose X number of parking spots, then that would be a concern perhaps.
It is, and to give council a visual, I mean, everybody knows what a parking lot without trees looks like. And you have parking lots with extensive landscaping to break up. That would be like Quality Foods, Shoppers Drug Mart. My understanding of the debate for council right now is we're looking at trees. and tree wells to provide more of a canopy treatment as opposed to the whole ground shrubbery breakup that takes a lot more space and reduces the parking. So I think that yes, there would be some changes to the parking. Right now, if I recall correctly, they're also showing all standard parking spaces. So by incorporating small parking spaces, which have a reduced depth, there'll be some allowance. There's some allowance to provide areas for tree well while minimizing the impact on parking.
Go ahead.
Well, it's interesting you should bring up those two parking lots, because those are the two that I use as my example of how not to do parking. One's a maze, you can't find your way through it, you need a friggin' road map every time you go through, and the other one's so small, there's no room to park. There's these lovely boulevards and all this stuff, but it's chaos trying to get in and out of parking spots at Quality Foods. So I've always felt that parking is for parking. If we've got trees there already, that's fine. If we can incorporate them in somehow, nice, but not at the loss of parking spots. You're going to have 81 units, 111 parking spots. Most people who are going to live in one of these will be, there's 2 and 3 bedroom suites. You may have many people that have 2 cars in there. I think you don't want to lose any parking spots to put a tree or two in, personally.
Okay, Councillor White?
Well, as a person with a small car, I can certainly fit into a much smaller space. And I just know that, maybe in the first 5 years, an asphalt huge expanse can look passably okay. But when you add 10 to 15 years on it, I've seen a lot of ugly car parks, and just the addition of a few trees which brings some shade, can make a huge difference. And it always seemed like a past mistake when you see these shopping malls with just an expanse of tarmac. And so if we could break it up. And it sounds like by having going for 1 or 2 shade trees rather than the landscaping envelopes, you're not taking as much room. And then you get the canopy effect, and you get the cooling effect too when you've broken it up. And visually too. I mean, if I was living in one of these units, I would much prefer to look out and see 1 or 2 trees than just an expanse of car parking and asphalt. So I would certainly support this.
Councillor Margaret?
Oh, thank you. Again, going back to our notes, do I recall, again, I'm testing my memory, this is very serious, that there was consideration in order to protect the Douglas firs, that in fact some parking space was going to be limited. 4 parking spaces would be eliminated in order to accommodate that. Am I correct? Yes.
So the site plan that's on the drawings
Page 77.
then is superseded by the statement regarding conversations with the arborist. The site plan is designed for a 2-to-1 slope between the edge of the parking lot and the neighboring property line to the east, which would result in soil on top of the roots. So they contacted an arborist and asked if that would be sufficient, and the arborist said no, you'd have to put some retaining walls to bring so you don't have that much of an overburden.
Okay.
That reduces them by those parking spaces.
I see.
And outstanding items include conformance to the arborist, the revised arborist treatment to preserve the portraits.
Any further discussion on the motion around adding landscaping? Yes.
Can I just have clarification? Are we voting for 1 or 2 trees, or, I'm unsure of the motion.
Well, I think that's a good question. It needs to be specified. I guess you could have a motion that says additional landscaping but at no loss of parking. You could have additional landscaping at loss of parking. I guess it depends on what
Marginal or at marginal loss of parking. That would.
What is it that council would like to have considered?
Well, could we do something like, say, additional landscaping if there's no loss of parking?
You could, but that would be an amendment to the motion.
Or could it say to incorporate additional landscaping and with an indication of what that represents in loss of car parking? And then we could say, well, if you reduce that by a half, because until you actually,
Well, then it's going to have to come back to council before
Yeah.
second reading, which I don't think is probably wise at this point. This project's been being considered for some time, and we're going to spend a whole lot of time and effort to try to figure out how many parking spots are lost or not lost. I think council has to be clear on its direction here. You know the number of parking spots being proposed. You may want to dress up those parking lots, that's one thing, but if you want to add extensive landscaping at the loss of parking lots or stalls, that will be another thing that may not get as much support.
or with
Okay, so
minimal
I would
loss of
propose an
car parking.
amendment then that we say that more landscaping as long as there's no loss of parking.
Hold that thought for a second, do you have something to that?
That would be consistent with the site plan. So Ian just took a look at the landscaping plan. There were some smaller trees proposed.
Yeah.
So that plus the allowance to look at small car parking spaces would allow for a breaking up of the asphalt expanse with trees without a loss of parking.
So you're saying you already have that into consideration?
No, I'm saying that we can do it if council wishes.
So
You
what do
can
you-
make a motion that says to add trees to break up the expanse with no loss of parking. That is doable.
That's the amendment that you're
All right,
doing.
that's the amendment.
And we're not specifying trees necessarily, we're just saying landscaping.
Yeah. Trees are probably easier than, well, we'll leave that to you.
Yes.
Trying to build some rental housing here.
I was just gonna say, nobody's it's in the back, no one's gonna see it anyway.
But this is our opportunity, though, to...
It is,
to
but
make
we
sure-
shouldn't lose sight of the big picture here either.
Nope,
It's nice to
I
have
don't think-
additional landscaping, but I think the motion, the amendment is that additional landscaping would be at no loss of parking. So is there a second for
I'll
that?
second that.
On the amendment, any further discussion? Seeing none, on the motion as amended, or on the amendment, sorry, all those in favor? Motion's amended, so the wording now is, read it back to me?
The trees will be incorporated in the parking area to break up the asphalt at no loss to parking.
Okay, good. Any further discussion on that? Yes.
No, none of that, but I do have another parking question. So.
Okay. And then all those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. So you got the wording to add to the conditions. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, so reading over the report, there was talk of, I think it was 3 electrical spots for cars. Is that going through, or was that just proposed?
That is part of the application proposal.
Okay. So that will be done. They will be putting...
Yes, and that is included in the phase development.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so with that additional condition, then are you ready to give it first reading?
I'll move that.
Thank you.
Second.
Any further discussion at first reading? All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. And I think there was a second motion, wasn't there?
I'll move too.
Second.
And that was to authorize the phase development agreement for first reading?
Yes.
Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Motion's carried. All right, so we'll wait for that to come back for second reading. Thank you, staff. All right, moving on to correspondence. We have a letter from the Wounded Warrior Run organization.
Move receipt.
Second.
And I believe that's just to let us know they're coming, and usually there's somebody there to greet them on February 22nd.
I'll move that the mayor is there to greet them.
God willing. All those in favor? Motion's carried. I think I missed it last year.
I went to your place.
There you go.
Here it is.
There you go. And the last item, or second item of correspondence, is a letter from UBCM on the gas tax Community Works Fund payment just for receipt.
I'll move receipt.
All those in favor? Motion's carried, and I'll just ask our Director of Finance, I assume that's the amount we budgeted for?
$635,000.
Okay, great. All right, so with that, we have no delayed items for delegations, so reports from members of council. We'll start with Councilor Swift.
Okay. See you on. Okay, my short this time. I attended the RCMP Christmas reception, the tree lighting, and the regular Philbrook board meeting, and I did a stint at the Philbrook Craft Fair.
Thank you. Councilor Arnott.
Yeah, I did the RCMP function as well. The Community Justice Center had their AGM last week, I think it was, and got a couple new members in there, and then they'll be looking at elections for president for that next time. Did a few other things, just meet and greet type things, and I'll leave it at that for now.
Thank you. Councilor Grant.
I won't bore you with all the Christmas party festivities, but I did go to the RCMP one and the tree light up.
Yes.
And the regional district, last regional district meeting, it was largely the electoral areas show, but a few things of note that came out. King Coho wastewater service approved, so they'll have their own wastewater treatment thing going out for King Coho. Mount Washington Fire Protection is now approved, if you saw the newspaper, so that's good news for them. They are looking at building a new trail along the new connector down by Vanier on the new bridge they put, so a little trail beside that. And the UV filtration contract was granted for the concrete work, so they'll be able to set the lights in place, so that should be coming soon, and hopefully that'll end, or essentially end, our boil water issues. And so there's been some movement on the Kensington properties. Mostly that was in camera. There was a little bit out, so I will tell you that there is some movement, and stay tuned for what comes of that. And that's it.
Councilor Margaret.
Thank you. I attended the opening of the Campbell River Hospital. Also, it was my pleasure to attend the banquet. Thanks courtesy to the fire department. Also, I attended our seniors board meeting, and I'm sure everyone received a copy of our newsletter, which will bring you really up to date as to everything's happening over there. I added to the coffers of the Philbrook Christmas market, and oh yes, and I attended the gathering to celebrate the new partnership between McDonald's and North Adam College.
All right, great. Councilor McKinnon.
This is Councilor Grant up the top there. Christmas tree lighting, the fire department's banquet, Christmas at the Philbrook, Vancouver Island Regional Library meeting last Saturday in Nanaimo, and finally the Comox Valley Homeless Coalition today, and I have a copy of their year 3, 2018, of their 5-year plan, and it has some impressive steps and things that have been completed already for councillors' view if anyone wants to look at that. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Councilor Price.
Yes, I attended the Fireman's Christmas dinner, thank you, an AVICC executive meeting. I went to the Comox Town Residents Association general meeting, which was to fold the organisation, and I did say a few words on behalf of this, and just to thank them for their over 25 years of service to the town. And they've always being respectful and knowledgeable. And I was at MLA Wanneroo Leonard's official office open house. And we also had a regional district committee of the whole and sports commission in that. At the sports commission, we did look at that there are going to be some significant costs coming down the pipeline because of changes in safety regulations, in part to do with lifeguards at the pools and increased requirements to do with a tragedy that happened in the interior. And also because of the tragedy in Fernie, we will be seeing some regulation changes around ice and the need to have more sensors. And the full extent is not known, but we were given the heads up, and full costs will be coming. And at the Committee of the Whole, the CDRD now has a new website which is about to be launched in March of next year. It's phone compatible, so they did find, I think they found about 50% of the usage was phones and iPads. The 2016 Regional Growth Strategy, it's always a problem because there's not a lot of things that you can actually measure, but it did show that there was a decrease in affordability of rental accommodation or of housing in general, based on that 30% of income going for housing. And then we had the board meeting, which Air Director Grant covered. Yeah, so we will be now good for 3 NTUs with the ultraviolet. So we certainly wouldn't have had that last boil water, and hopefully we won't have any more.
I think there was only one in all of them that was actually prolonged over 3, so it would have almost eliminated them.
So really hoping that we'll get through till we've got the full filtration. And I also attended the Comox Archives and Museum Society meeting. And yeah, they're doing a really interesting mapping project, which is collecting all the maps that we've had of the town throughout the many decades. And it will be on the website eventually. You'll be able to look at who lived in what house when it was subdivided, and yeah, lots and lots of information. Thank you.
All right, great, thanks. Yeah, obviously lots of things related to Christmas, a couple tree lighting ceremonies, the parade, of course various receptions, including yesterday, 2 days ago at the BC Salmon Farmers, one up in Campbell River, and the Wing Commanders one on the weekend. CVED's had their board meeting looking at strat planning. We had a presentation there by Russell Dyson, the new CAO of the regional district, so a good update for particular our business directors on that board, and good discussion ensuing. Attended lunch with the other mayors a couple of occasions, our regular quarterly lunch, and then also we had another one with a proponent who's looking at bringing electric buses to Vancouver Island, so no doubt that'll be discussed at the regional district. What else we got here? ICE-T board meeting, our strat planning we did last week. And yes, I attended the RCMP contract management meeting in Richmond a couple weeks ago. More of the same kind of issues there. Also a gentleman who's on the executive of the Kiwanis Club came to see me talking about some opportunities for partnership with the town, so I've certainly referred him on to our Parks Director, and they may have some things to pursue there.
That was the Kiwanis Club, you said?
Yes, Kiwanis. So, as you know, we have worked with both Rotary and the Lions, but the Kiwanis Club is looking at some possible projects. And of course, the annual banquet with the firefighters, where lots of awards for long service and other things like Rookie of the Year and Firefighter of the Year and so on were handed out. So, with that in mind, I just want everyone to acknowledge and honor our chief, who's going to have surgery next week. And I'm sure he's in good hands, which is why he's brought his sidekick here tonight. In any event, in the spirit of Christmas, that is all about re-gifting. We had a hockey stick on the trophy case here, and I think it came from a Canucks alumni game, and I know this is not either of them the right hand for them to use, but maybe they can auction this off or something. I know the chief wants to get back in playing hockey after surgery, so there you go. Good luck with your surgery.
So long you get up to the alarm up here?
I'm trying to avoid it.
So we hope that you won't drive Mrs. Fire Chief too crazy with you being at home, but good luck on your recovery. And with that, are there any media questions at this time? No, any questions from members of the public? Seeing none, we will entertain a motion to adjourn. Meeting adjourned.